Imagine watching someone get everything you wanted: the praise, the approval, the recognition. And then imagine standing right next to them while it happens, watching people admire them, watching doors open for them, watching them receive the very thing you were hoping for. Now imagine that person isn't a stranger. It isn't a celebrity. It isn't someone on social media. It's your brother. Someone who grew up beside you. Someone who came from the same home. Someone who knows the same struggles. Someone who, in your mind, has no right to stand above you. Most people think the first murder in human history was about anger, but psychologists would probably point to something much darker: humiliation. Because anger is often just the surface. Underneath it, there is usually something else, something more painful. The feeling that you are not enough. The feeling that someone else's success somehow exposes your own failure. And throughout history, that feeling has pushed ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Sometimes inspiring things. Sometimes terrible things. The story of Cain and Abel is often told as a story about good and evil. But hidden beneath the surface is a psychological drama that feels surprisingly modern. A story about comparison, rejection, jealousy, and the dangerous thoughts that begin to grow when a person starts believing that someone else's success is the reason for their suffering. Before the day was over, one brother would be dead. Not because of greed, not because of power, not because of survival, but because one man could no longer bear what the other man represented. His name was Cain, and his story may reveal something uncomfortable about all of us. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the beginning. Two brothers, raised under the same sky, living in the same world, yet walking toward very different destinies. Cain worked the ground. He planted. He cultivated. He spent his days wrestling with the earth. Abel became a shepherd. He cared for flocks. He lived among living things. Eventually, both brothers brought offerings, an act of devotion, an act of worship, an act that should have united them. But something unexpected happened. Abel's offering was accepted. Cain's was not. And in that moment, something shifted inside Cain. Most people hear this part of the story and immediately focus on the rejection. But the rejection itself may not have been the deepest wound. The deepest wound was comparison. Because rejection hurts. But watching someone else succeed while you are rejected hurts even more. Modern psychology has repeatedly shown that human beings do not evaluate themselves in isolation. We evaluate ourselves through comparison. A person earning a good salary can feel miserable if everyone around them earns more. A talented artist can feel worthless after looking at someone else's success. A loving parent can suddenly feel inadequate after comparing themselves to another family. The pain often comes not from what we lack, but from what someone else has. And Cain had a front row seat to Abel's acceptance. He wasn't rejected alone. He was rejected while his brother was being honored. That changes everything. Because humiliation is a social emotion. It requires an audience. It requires comparison. It requires a witness. And Abel became the living reminder of everything Cain feared about himself. Notice something fascinating. The story does not say Cain immediately attacked his brother. There is a pause, a gap, a space between the wound and the action. And that space is where psychology becomes interesting. Because destructive behavior rarely appears out of nowhere. It grows, quietly, slowly, in the dark. A single painful thought enters the mind. Then it returns, again and again, and again. Soon, the event is no longer happening outside the person. It is happening inside them. They replay it. They analyze it. They imagine different outcomes. They create stories. And eventually, those stories begin to feel more real than reality itself. Have you ever replayed an embarrassing moment hundreds of times? Have you ever had an argument in your head that never actually happened? Have you ever become so focused on a perceived injustice that it consumed your thoughts? If so, you already understand the psychological road Cain was walking. The danger wasn't the rejection. The danger was what happened after, the meaning he attached to it. At one point, Cain receives a warning, a chance to stop, a chance to choose differently. And this may be the most important part of the entire story, because most catastrophes come with warnings. Relationships don't collapse overnight. Addictions don't appear overnight. Acts of violence don't appear overnight. There are signs, signals, moments where a person can still turn around. But wounded pride has a strange effect on the mind. It narrows attention. It creates tunnel vision. The person stops seeing possibilities. They stop seeing solutions. They stop seeing hope. All they see is the source of their pain. And once that happens, the world becomes very small. For Cain, that world eventually contained only two people, himself and Abel. Now let's talk about jealousy, because jealousy is one of the most misunderstood emotions in human nature. People often think jealousy means wanting what another person has, but real jealousy goes deeper than that. Sometimes you don't merely want their success, you want the comparison to disappear. You want relief. You want freedom from the feeling that they somehow diminish you. This is why people are rarely jealous of complete strangers. The billionaire on the other side of the planet doesn't bother us. The movie star doesn't usually bother us. But the coworker who got promoted, the friend whose business succeeded, the sibling who seems to have everything figured out, that can be different because they are close enough to become mirrors. And mirrors are dangerous. They show us things we don't want to see. Abel became a mirror. Every time Cain looked at him, he saw his own disappointment, his own insecurity, his own unresolved pain. And eventually, Abel stopped being a brother. He became a symbol of everything Cain believed was wrong with his life. This is one of the most dangerous psychological transformations that can happen to a human being. When a person becomes a symbol, because symbols are easier to hate than people. When we truly see another human being, we see complexity. We see fears, dreams, weaknesses, humanity. But when someone becomes a symbol, all of that disappears. They become the enemy, the obstacle, the problem. And once that happens, cruelty becomes easier. History is filled with examples of this. Entire groups reduced to symbols. Neighbors turned into enemies. Friends turned into rivals. The moment humanity disappears, destruction becomes possible. And that process may have begun inside Cain long before he ever stepped into the field. Eventually, the story reaches its darkest moment. Cain and Abel are alone together. No audience, no applause, no public rejection. Just two brothers. And yet the conflict is still alive. Because the real battlefield is no longer outside. It is inside Cain's mind. This is important. The murder did not begin in the field. The murder began in thought, in interpretation, in resentment, in stories repeated so many times that they became reality. And then the line is crossed. The first murder in human history. A brother kills a brother. Silence follows. And for a moment, we might imagine that Cain finally feels relief. After all, the source of comparison is gone. The source of pain is gone. The source of humiliation is gone. But that isn't what happens. Because eliminating the symbol never heals the wound. The wound remains. The insecurity remains. The emptiness remains. This is one of the great psychological truths hidden inside the story. People often believe that destroying the thing they blame will bring peace. But peace does not come from destruction. Because the real problem was never Abel. The real problem was what Abel represented. Think about how often this pattern appears today. Someone blames a coworker for their unhappiness. Someone blames an ex-partner. Someone blames a sibling. Someone blames a successful friend. And they become obsessed, convinced that if this person disappeared, everything would improve. But when the person leaves, the pain often remains. Because the source was never external. The source was internal. The comparison, the insecurity, the belief of not being enough. Cain's story forces us to confront a difficult possibility. Maybe our greatest enemies are not outside us. Maybe they are the stories we tell ourselves. There is another reason this story has survived for thousands of years. It doesn't describe a monster. It describes a human being, a wounded human being. And that is what makes it frightening. If Cain were completely evil, the story would be easy. We could dismiss him, ignore him, separate ourselves from him. But we can't. Because everyone knows what rejection feels like. Everyone knows what jealousy feels like. Everyone knows what humiliation feels like. The emotions are familiar. Only the outcome is different. And that forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How many terrible actions begin with ordinary emotions? How many destructive choices begin with a wounded ego? How many conflicts begin because someone felt unseen, unappreciated, or left behind? The distance between ordinary pain and extraordinary destruction may be smaller than we like to imagine. Today, comparison is everywhere. It follows us in our pockets, on our screens, in our feeds. We see promotions, achievements, relationships, luxury, beauty, success, every hour of every day. Human beings were never designed to compare themselves with millions of people at once. Yet, that is exactly what many of us do. And every comparison carries a hidden risk. The risk of forgetting our own path. The risk of measuring our worth through someone else's life. The risk of becoming trapped in resentment. In that sense, Cain's story may be more relevant today than ever before. Because the technology has changed, but human nature has not. So what is the lesson? It is not merely that jealousy is dangerous. Most people already know that. The deeper lesson is that comparison becomes deadly when it turns into identity. When another person's success begins defining your value. When another person's achievement becomes evidence of your failure. When another person's light makes you believe you are living in darkness. That is the moment to be careful. That is the moment to stop. That is the moment to remember that another person's success is not an attack on your existence. Because once comparison becomes identity, resentment begins to grow. And resentment, if left unchecked, has the power to transform almost anything. The story of Cain is not really about murder. Murder is simply the final chapter. The story is about what happens before: the jealousy, the humiliation, the comparison, the resentment, the stories we repeat inside our minds. That is where the real danger lives. And that is why this ancient story continues to survive. Not because it tells us about a killer, but because it tells us about being human. Because somewhere inside every person is the temptation to compare, to resent, to envy, to believe that someone else's success has stolen something from us. The challenge is recognizing those feelings before they grow, before they become something darker, before they become something we can no longer control. The frightening truth about Cain is not that he was different from us. The frightening truth is that he wasn't. And perhaps that is why, thousands of years later, we are still telling his story. Because the first murder in history was never only about two brothers. It was about the human heart. And that story is still being written today.